So now that we have our agent up and running and we know what network attacks means, let's see what informations we can get out of it. So in order to do that, all we have to do is go to the network attacks tab, and we are able to see all of them at once. As I've mentioned, you can check the incident types by clicking this little icon, or you can simply just hover one if you're curious what this means. And opening up one is pretty simple. You just click on it and it will show your messages. And as well, we can see the date, the victim machine, the attacker IP address, severity label, and we can see what it tried to do. So you can see there is almost 400 lines of this. So it means the DDoS attempt is indeed valid. It have tried to connect many times. So in this case, it means that BitNinja has blocked this IP address. But let's say this IP address isn't automated. It's just some random hacker trying to wreak havoc on your machine. What you can do in these situations, if you're absolutely certain that this guy is trying to hack your machine and it's pretty bad, you can just select this IP address and go on and blacklist it. It's not necessary all the time, but sometimes it's easier to blacklist than wait for BitNinja to put this IP on the blacklist. Because how it works for BitNinja, we have our limits in a happy medium. So for example, with DOS, I believe it's 250, over 250 attacks will get put on the DOS attack, and we will say that that's a DOS attempt and you should be banned. However, let's say this person knows the default settings for BitNinja, and it tries to get over them by giving you a smaller connection number at once and whatnot. So you can simply just blacklist this IP, either from here by clicking this, or we can go to the firewall section and click on the blacklist and just put in the IP address here for the machine Ninja course, and we are adding it to the blacklist. So with this IP stays on your blacklist forever, which is a pretty radical solution considering that it can change hands, it can do whatever it is. So what we should do instead is add an expiration date, which is, as I mentioned, if you do this after, let's say this is a week, after a week, this IP address will get removed from your blacklist, and so the connections can come from it again. And you can see if the DOS attempt stopped or they didn't. So if they didn't, you can add it again, or let just BitNinja do its job and edit for you after a little while. Or you can simply just decide to lower your limits, for example. So let's see what we can do. Let's remove this IP address firstly, and let's see how we can investigate what's happening on our machine. So let's open up the two machines. One of them is the attacker and the other one is the Ninja course machine. And we will use Siege. Siege is a program that is designed for stress testing and just connection testing basically for your machines, and it should be used for this much. So today we will use it in a slightly different way, but still it's perfectly fine because it is our server. So what we do is type Siege and then type -t, which is -time, and we will type a 5. This means this test will run for 5 minutes, and we can also do -c, and let's go with 30 connections. And we will type in the IP address we are trying to siege, and then we can just enter it. And so we did. So you can see it's running, the command prompt is not opening up, so it's running, it's doing its job. And if we go to the victim machine, and we have a few connections, or rather commands here, which we can use. First off, this is a pretty long one, but this way we are able to see that we have 62 connections from 3.3.3.4, and some other connections which are probably related with the virtual machine. And we can also use the second command, which will just tell us the overall number of connections onto our machine. And if we do this, we are able to see that this number changes. So it's 56, then 61, and so you can see it's dynamically moving around. So let's say in this scenario, BitNinja has not found anything because 61 is still pretty much under the limitations of BitNinja, because our limits are set at 250, if we recall, for the EOS attempt. So 61 is perfectly within the realms of our sets. So we can at this point decide what we want to do with this IP address, or what we want to do with the DOS module. First off, we can simply just blacklist this IP once again, and let's see what we can do if we blacklist this, and let's just, I don't know, give it an expiration date of 1 week. And if we go back here, let's see the 3.3.3.4 has disappeared completely. So it's not connected to the machine anymore, which means the blacklisting worked, because we are looking for established connections, and since this machine cannot establish connection, it's completely dead at this point. We can also verify this by trying to ping 3.3.3.7, and you can see there is no response. So we really have been graylisted. You can see it's 100% packet loss. So let's just remove ourselves again. So different approach we can take is modifying the underlying module's configuration files. So in this case, let's say we are just sieging the machine for 1 minute with 10 connections and just going to 3.3.3.7. And if we copy and paste this little code here, we can see that we have 20 connections from 3.3.3.4. So this is an ideal scenario, because in the real world, if you're getting a DDoS attack, it will be just a few connections from a certain IP address. So it would be pretty boring to just go on one by one and blacklist IP addresses. So what you can do instead is modify the limits for the DDoS detection. So in our case, let's just stop the siege for a second. And in our case, we have to open up the file under /etc/bitninja/DOS detection and configuration.ini. So we open this up, and you can see there are some thresholds already set. So let's modify these. Let's go to general. Let's set this to, I don't know, like 30 connections, which is pretty low. So always remember to check if the settings you have just changed have made any other issues, because if it did, you will be able to follow it up in the network attacks tab. So what we will do is we will also lower the thresholds for the other limits as well. Let's go with 50, 50, and then let's just leave this for 30, so we don't have the same numbers. And let's just save it with Control and X. It will ask if we want to save. We have to type Y for yes, and then press enter. Afterwards, it's a good idea to just restart BitNinja for the configurations to apply properly. And let's just wait a little bit. And in the meantime, what we can do is type our command to siege, and let's go with 2 minutes. And I don't know, let's just have like 80 connections, because remember previously we got graylisted with 255 connections and 80 did nothing. So let's see what it does if we go with 80 connections right now. So let's start the siege. Let's see. You can see it's 81 connections, 80 connections, 79, and it should soon stop once BitNinja starts properly. So just give it a second. Yep, and it's gone. You can see it's now 5 connections. So we have been blocked. So this is indeed on our gray list. We can see we have a few connections, and you can see the DOS attempts. It's 50 more lines, 59 more lines. It's also 60 more lines and 36 more lines. So we have been successful at modifying, and we have been able to block IP addresses that have been connecting with. You can see the Siege also reports us that connection has timed out. So we are indeed blocked, and we are no longer connected. Those are probably some dead connections, 43.3.3.4. But yes, we have been blocked, and this way we have successfully stopped an attack that otherwise would not be normally covered by BitNinja, because it's in the realm of a false positive possibility. Because what we have to keep in mind when we are setting up configuration files is that they have to cover higher loads and higher connection numbers, but also keep the false positive number low. So we have to make sure we don't put the limits too low, because that would result in false positives, and we don't put the limits too high, because then that would result in BitNinja not being able to stop most of the attacks. So in this scenario, if you see it fit that you change this number, it's totally up to you, and you can always just revert it if you would really like to go back, and so you can avoid false positives in the future.